To help you with your question, let's go through a numerical example. Now, the way that an allowance works is that it is a reduction to your trade receivables at the end of the year. So imagine in 2021 that we had trade receivables of 10,000 and that during the year we anticipated that up to $400 worth of receivables were not going to be able to pay us the money that is due. Well, that allowance would be set up for $400 so that at the end of the year, the net receivables that we would be reflecting in the statement of financial position would equate to $9,600. Now, let's imagine that we are 1 year on into year 2022. And just for simplicity, let's just imagine our trade receivables are still $10,000. However, at the end of 2022, we realized that more of our receivables may not potentially pay us. So what we want to do is we want to increase the allowance to, let's say, $600. Now, the allowance, you must realize, is an estimate at the end of the year. And because we make that estimate at the end of the year, that amount reflects the total allowance that we want to show at the end of that specific year. So what we're saying is that by the year end 2022, we want to be showing net receivables of 9,400. Now, if we decide that we want to increase the allowance to $600, we are not going to post the full $600 as an allowance in the current year. The reason being is because the allowance is an SFP balance. It's a statement of financial position balance. And we know that statement of financial position balances get rolled forward and accumulated into the next year. Sort of like your cash balance. If you had cash at the end of 2021 at $300, well, at the beginning of 2022, you would start with that $300. Now, the same is true for your allowance. If you ended with $400 last year, well, at the beginning of 2022, you would also start with the $400. Now, if we added a further $600 to the 400, well, you'd end up with an allowance of $1,000. And we don't want that. We only want the allowance to equal $600. So what we do instead is we recognize the movement. And that's because the allowance is a balance in the statement of financial position, which is rolled forward. So by increasing this by $200, we would be debiting the irrecoverable debt expense, crediting the allowance, and in doing so, we will end up with a balance in our allowance at the end of 2022 that amounts to $600.